Hold on.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Peter J. Redding. I'm a professional coach and a professional coach trainer and have been working in the area of core self. How can we support an individual to know who they really are deep down inside of themselves when they have maybe even forgotten about it altogether or have been conditioned or programmed or socialized by their upbringing and been told you can't do that in life and you should do that in life and this is what we want you to do and this is what you will do in various forms of love and coercion as the case may be, and we're going to be talking about how do you penetrate that, how do you align or realign yourself with that sense of core self. Yeah, so welcome to the World Unity Week, and this is in the context of human rights. And I believe that the most basic, absolute basic starting point of a human right is for a human that has the right to know who they are. So, welcome to chapter or part 3 of this whole thing. And let me just read a little bit of a uh, overview, and we'll get to Gene here in a second. So program 3, human rights 1.3, realign, realign. I have the right. And when I say I as a human being, which I believe is all 7.5 billion of us in the world today. So I speak on behalf, if I can, for all 7.5 billion people, have the right to know and pursue the actions that when I am aligned with my true core self, I am a fulfilled, happy, and productive human being. Wow. There is a element to this that a lot of people, even as early as their teenage years, and certainly by the time that they're in their 20s and 30s, have forgotten who they really are or don't even know that they have that inside of them anymore because they've been told for so long how to do their life. So, knowing, having articulated my innate and resourceful inner self that we talked about in the first 2 chapters of this week's program, this is the beginning of a journey of personal fulfillment. The next step, and I believe that the absolute basic human right, is the alignment or realignment of potentially thousands of actions and plans and aspirations and goals and dreams, contentious issues, choice of friends, associates, family members, and on and on and on that have been collected over the course of one's lifetime, to really re-examine that and where and how I work. Well, basically everything in my life that needs to be re-examined and, like I say, realigned. So some of the things that I've chosen work out pretty well. I'm happy with that, and they turn out to be aligned with my core life purpose, perhaps. And when I take that deep dive inside of myself, or I support a client to do that as their coach, then they start to look at themselves differently and they become more aware of who they really are, what they're really here to contribute, and start making different decisions perhaps on the direction of their life. Some of these things are subtle, some of these things are hugely different, but in any event, because they're human, they get to choose. And they can still choose to continue doing what they're doing, or they can choose a different path that is perhaps more aligned with, yeah, this is the purpose of why I'm here. And the last thing I'll say before we get to Jean is every human being, I believe, has a unique life purpose that nobody else can fulfill, and not in the same way that this individual can. I'll say that again, because it's absolutely relevant to this human right 1.0, that every human being has something within them that is absolutely categorically unique to them. And if they don't honor that, or they don't even know about that, or it's still hidden inside under a whole shield of conditioning, then whatever their purpose is not being fulfilled. Maybe they are not the person for the neighbor next door. Maybe they're not going out and advocating what they know to be a correct way of living, etc. Whatever that might be. And there's a million different things that individual could be here to do, to say, to be there for somebody. So my agenda, I'll say it straight up, I want everybody on the planet to know who they really are. And now, they can do whatever they want with that. My job is done. That's why I'm here on the planet. There's something more to you underneath that shield of social programming, socialization, social, what you have to do, etc. All right, so I'll get off of that. We got a fantastic colleague of mine, and actually a faculty member, and I'm proud to say this, of Coach for Life Institute, where a lot of this work has been nurtured over the last 25 years. And so I give thanks to Coach for Life Institute, which is a coach's training organization that I co-founded back in 1996. And this is one of the gifts that has come out of it that we're giving to the world, literally giving to the world. It's available for free. So we'll get to that piece in a little bit. But I want to welcome Jean Callahan, awesome Jean Callahan, professional certified coach and a facilitator of coaching and a mentor of coaching. And so welcome, Jean. Do you want to tell them a little bit about where you live, what you've been up to, and what kind of people do you support?
Sure. Thank you, Peter. Well, I live in Sarasota, Florida. I've lived here for 16 years. And since I went through the coach training back in 2015, 7 years ago, I have since become a PCC, as Peter mentioned, or a professional certified coach. I have also taken the PCC assessor certification training through the ICF. And I currently am facilitating the PCLC and the ACLC classes with Coach for Life, as well as I have my own coaching practice. And primarily the people that I support and the people that seek me out are women who are in high-level positions in their careers, who are going through a transition, who have found themselves in maybe a paradigm that's outdated or in an environment that no longer seems to be a good fit for them. And so through this amazing CoreSELF, this self-discovery process, I support clients to find their next careers that's completely aligned with their authentic self.
Wow, that sounds like serious business.
It is.
Wow. And you're telling me that the CoreSELF that might take 10 or 15 minutes for an individual to go through. I know you do a much more extensive one, but the ones we're talking about right now is kind of the quick way for an individual to self-administer this. That can support an individual to make such a serious decision in their life as a change of career,
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you a question in terms of human rights, because one of the main themes of the World Unity Week this week is about DEIJ, right? Issues of equal opportunity, allowing people to be themselves, allowing people to work where they want to work, to leave or live where they want to live, et cetera, not be abused or misused or mistreated is what I meant to say, in any way, shape, or form. So how does this simple little, I'm going to say simple little because it's amazingly powerful, but it's like it's like a little chihuahua. I'm tiny but mighty. Right. It's a very powerful technology, and that then supports an individual to, well, you tell the story. What are some of your experiences of clients that you've worked with that you've used this with?
Well, so I have several clients. Actually, I have two clients who have used this beautiful tool, who have actually written books in the
Wow.
last year and a half. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. I have clients who have exited organizations and teams that were not a fit for them or that became toxic or just really not aligned with who they are. And they have used what they've learned through the CoreSELF, through this process. They've used that as criteria for how they choose their next career, what team they want to be on, what kind of environment they want to be working with, a place where they know that their core strengths are going to be celebrated, where they can show up and be the full expression of themselves. And they've used what they've learned from this amazing tool and this, learning who they are authentically, to make major life decisions.
Wow, I'm awestruck, but hearing it back, and I know that that's true because I've experienced it firsthand myself. And at the same time, I'm kind of being an audience member and listening to this and going, yeah, this sounds too quick and easy. It can't be that easy, because people have struggled with those kinds of issues for decades. Some of them are still in a quandary of, what do I do? Do I leave? There's money issues. I got family responsibilities. I got this, that, and the other. And so I guess to kind of the bookends of that. Here's a major life decision in the middle. In some cases, if you could tell just a story, confidentiality, intact. But how long had they been anguishing over that kind of a decision before they got to you? And then after they made the decision, how did it work out?
Sure. Yeah. So I had one, I still am actually supporting this one lady in our coaching relationship. And she struggled for probably 20, 25 years from
Wow.
job to job, hmm career to career. She's in the L&D space, learning and development space.
Okay.
And when she found me and we went through this process, within about 6 to 7 months, using what she had learned about herself, she was able to land basically her ideal job. And she's now in an amazing space where, I mean, who she is authentically is celebrated every day.
Wow. 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 Okay. So I have to ask this. I know it's a leading question, but her health had to have improved because of that, for not, from going from all that stress to celebration. Can you
Oh
say
my
is
gosh. Yeah, absolutely. She went from not being able to sleep well, from being completely stressed, not eating well. I mean, just everything. She was totally consumed by all these things that weren't working for her. And then once she really discovered, the core of who she is and how she can align her decisions, her action steps, her goals with that, her health has improved. She actually calls me and tells me, "Oh my gosh, my Fitbit told me I slept so well and I feel so rejuvenated." She doesn't even have to set an alarm sometimes anymore. It's absolutely amazing.
That's just, I love that story. And I've heard that 100 times, 1,000 times from other people that have gone through this, because it seems like a magic elixir. It seems like, okay, it's a hocus pocus or something, but the practicality of this, you want to speak to that in terms of just how practical this is?
Sure. I mean, it's so practical because when we know who we are authentically, when we know what drives us, all of the decisions that we can make, we can align with, is this going to allow me to be the highest version of myself? Is
Wow.
this going to allow me to show up fully? Is
Wow.
this going to allow me to share what I was put here on earth to do in a way that's meaningful and impactful? I mean, it's very practical. And a lot of my clients, I mean, they use it every day. They've incorporated it into their morning routine.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a very, very practical tool.
So there's an interesting nuance to this. I hadn't really thought about it, at least not recently, but it's almost like a predictive model. In other words, if I have three choices in front of me, or three forks in the road, if you will, how well does this line up? How well does this line up? How well does this line up? If I can imagine myself living in that, on that fork, right, 6 months from now, a year from now, whatever. And so there is a clear guidance system, it sounds like, inside now that they're connected to, that they go, this is the path for me. This one's okay, but not as spectacular, not as aligned. This one, not at all. I've been in that job before. I think I crossed that one out. But this one over here, do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. I would think of it, it's kind of like a measuring stick.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And so for one client that I had, as she was leaving the job that was no longer a fitter, she kind of, what I would say, like maybe like outgrew the job. And so as she was looking for that next career that was going to be kind of like her forever career, that she used her core self and her strengths and her talents and her values. She used all of that as a measuring stick. So she had probably, I would say within like a 4 month period, she probably had 7 or 8 different job offers.
Wow.
And so as she was going and she was interviewing, I mean, it's very practical when she was interviewing and asked, she had the right questions to ask for what she needed in the interview. And then also as she was getting the information from the prospective jobs and managers and teams and things like that, she also had so much data that she could then refer back to and say, okay, let me take my measuring stick out. And how does this measure up, or how does this align with what I'm looking for?
That's brilliant. Yeah, and so again, so practical. So I know who I am, and as a result, I know what I'm looking for, and what satiates me, what is a deep fulfilling part of who I am that I'm now in touch with. The other aspect that I heard kind of in between the lines is there's a new level of confidence, or holding that, yeah, as you were telling the story of the woman that's been agonizing for 25 years looking for something that is more life affirming, I'll call it. There's a panache, there's an air of confidence. There's I'm not going to settle for less. Is that kind of come through as well, universally, or just in a few cases?
Absolutely. That comes, that's universal. All of my clients' self-confidence just goes through the roof. The two ladies I told you about earlier who wrote those books, I
Yeah.
had one of them reach out to me a few months ago, and her book is on one of the Amazon bestseller lists now. It's a children's book. And she called me up, and she was going to present her book to a school district for them to incorporate in their classes. And she said, I'm so nervous. And she said, and before I got to this point, I would have never even put myself in that situation. It would have been too scary. I didn't have enough confidence to do that. And now she's been in a bunch of schools, and she's done marketing events and all kinds of things that she didn't have the confidence to do beforehand.
Wow. And all because you took her through a little process that said, here's who you really are.
Mhm.
And when you are aligned with that, kind of the topic of the day, when you're aligned with who you are, you end up being a powerful force for good.
Yeah.
And that then is self-generating, isn't it? It comes back, and now I've got more energy and more excitement, and I feel better, and I'm helping more people, and it just
Yeah, it's like it grows exponentially.
can you imagine a world where everybody has that same confidence and knowingness about themselves?
I can, and it would be a world that would just be almost like a utopia.
That's my goal. That is my goal. I see that. Um, be, it's so clear. It's so clear. I've seen it hundreds of times over. Um, when an individual knows who they are, they stop getting stopped. It's like, excuse me, move out of my way. You're a roadblock right now. Thank you very much. And they have the confidence to navigate that. Whereas before they'll, oh no, okay, I understand. Yeah, I'll never amount to anything, or I shouldn't be so presumptuous to assume that you're gonna whatever. None of that. And again, this is not from a hubris place or a bragging place. It's from an incredibly humble place of, I'm here to do the work that my creator put me on the planet to do. And no one is going to tell me otherwise now. Not my dad, not my professor, not my boss. I know who I am, and I want to get about doing it and being it. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to switch over a little bit. You've talked about your clients in terms of what they've accomplished or been able to do with this. What is your story? What is, and again, without prying into your privacy things or anything that you feel willing to literally share with the world, what's been your own experience of getting in touch with the core of Gene?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's literally a life changer. I mean, literally, it changed my life forever in a positive way. I got so clear about what my purpose is, what I'm here to do. And I see it, and it's amazing because I am now able to align all the decisions that I make, all of my future goals, how I want to show up in the world. I'm able to align that with who I really am.
Wow.
The other thing, like the other side of the coin to that, is that when something is not aligned, or when something is not allowing me to be authentic, I notice it so quickly. Whereas before, when I didn't know who I really was and who my core self was, I might sit in something for, that wasn't working for, like my clients, 5, 10, 15 years, which I did in my corporate job. And
Me too.
yeah,
No,
and I was really good at my job. I was great at it, made it to vice president, all well and good. And it wasn't that full expression of how I wanted to show up in the world and what I wanted to give to others and what I wanted my legacy to be, so to speak. And so it really was an entire life changer for me.
Hear that. I hear that in your voice, your energy, your face. It's just beaming out.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that you said that I want to put an underline underneath is that the things that are not aligned, and they still show up, they do for me. And I've been working with this for a long time, but they still show up. I'm much more attuned to do two things. Number one, notice it. And number two, not blame myself. Oh, I must not be doing this right, or I'm okay, I'll try harder, or I'll work harder, or I'll work over the weekends to get this done, blah, 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 which I would have done at, mid-30s. And it's not because they are trying to take advantage of me. That never crossed my mind, or, had no concept of an inner self of a guidance system or GPS or true north or any of that. So I can notice it quicker. And in most cases, it's not me. What they're asking for is legitimate. They're not trying to abuse me. They're not trying to abuse anybody, but it's just not, I'm not lined up with it. So let me go do something else that I am aligned with. and not agonizing over it. Again, I understand that between the ages of about 22 and 37, was that about 15 years? Boy, was I a great workaholic. I mean, and they love me. It was a great match. So I want to come back to human rights. I want to come back to the core of this whole series that we're doing this week on CoreSELF. Well, how do you tie that into human rights, basic human rights of what? What does this do for your human right as a American female successful ex-VP?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, the basic human right of being able to pursue happiness, knowing myself, I have to know what it is that makes me happy in order to be able to pursue happiness.
That
And
sounds
so
so
it's,
that's so simple, but I want you to repeat it because it's so profound. I have to know.
I have to know what makes me happy in order to be able to pursue happiness. And not what society thinks I should have or do or be to be happy, not what cultural norms say or dictate I should have or do or be to be happy, what I know to be true for myself. And so that's what it comes back to for me, is
Wow.
that it's not about what other people, external forces say I should do or be or have. It's really about knowing that at that deep level, what makes me happy, and then have that right to pursue it.
Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. It sounds so straightforward, and yet it's so profoundly significant for the life that I get to choose to live. And I can also choose to ignore it.
That's
And
allowed.
that's also my human right. You know, I've got a free will. No, I don't think I want to do that. Well, it'll catch up with me. It generally does sooner or later. Most of the time, sooner now. Okay, so I think one of the last questions I want to ask you is, you've talked about working with I'm going to call them mid-career, very highly successful women in an organization. It could be, I didn't say this, but I'm assuming it could be a for-profit or a nonprofit. Would that be accurate? Or mostly?
Both, yes.
Both.
Primarily
Okay.
for profit.
Okay. Does it only work with people like that? Have you noticed that it work with other kinds of people at different ages, different stages of life, different nationalities, different cultures, different upbringings, different educational levels, and on, as many, different types of people that you may have worked with or seen this work with or not work with? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I have coached men and women all over the world. I've had clients in Australia and Finland and Canada and all over the US and China and Japan. And regardless of what their cultural norms are, what their conditioning is, what their age is, it works. It
Wow.
has no boundaries.
And how is that the case? I have an answer for that for my own self, but what's your conclusion as to why this is so powerful for, I'll say, everybody?
That's a really great question. I think because we all have our own unique journey here, and we all, again, have that basic human right to want to do what makes us feel fulfilled and feel happy. And primarily the people that I have used this tool with, and who have really, everyone succeeded. It's really, it's universal. I don't know if there's a better way to say that. It really is there. It doesn't matter if you're elementary school aged or if you're a senior. I mean, it gets at the core of who we are beyond the physical. So beyond the roles that we play, beyond whether we're a daughter or a husband or a nephew or a whatever, it goes beyond the roles that we play. It goes beyond the physical things, the external things that are going on. It's about who we are as that spiritual being having a human experience. And I think that's what makes it so universal.
So if you're human, it works.
Yeah.
It's real simple.
Bullseye. Perfect.
I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, well, the other question I always ask, and I always get asked, but I'm going to ask you as a coach and have worked with such a myriad of people and nationalities and what have you. Does that core sense of self that they identify 3 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever, does it change? Does it change because they age, because they're living in a different stage of life? Does that fundamental core morph over time?
The short answer is no.
And what? Give me the longer answer.
The longer answer
I'll
is,
let you finish on that note.
sure, yes. The longer answer is they may become a little bit more clear. Their life purpose may expand. That was actually my own experience with this 7 years ago when I did this. And so my life purpose went from something a bit more specific to something bigger in scope for myself. And so there may be a few little tweaks here and they may add words as they know themselves, but primarily, no, it doesn't change.
So the essential core of CoreSELF doesn't change.
No, not in my experience. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and that's been mine for 25 years or 27 years now. Yeah. It may be articulated a little bit differently. There may, like you say, be a few more words that are added to this part of it or that part of it, but the essential nature that comes out in that first exercise is gold. It's the core. It's the true north. Yeah. Jean, anything else that you would like to say to our audience in terms of encouraging them to do this? How would you say that?
I would say absolutely take the time, give yourself this gift. Do this. It literally is a life changer. And to know yourself at that deep level is just phenomenal. And I can just speak from my own experience that when I am able to look at the life that I'm creating and do that with that knowledge of my core self, the world has just opened up, and all kinds of things I never thought were possible are now possible.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful.
do it.
Beautiful. Thank you for being you. Thank you for embracing all of you and being you, all of you. I said I would give you the website. I haven't done that yet, so I'll do that now. www.coreselfie.com. Core, C-O-R-E, selfie, SELFIE.com. And you have free resources on that. If anybody wants to go beyond that to a coach's training that birthed this whole process, you can go to coachforlife.com. Coach for FORLIFE, coachforlife.com. Jean, you've been wonderful. You're awesome. You're bubbly. You're excited. You have so much expertise in this area. Thank you for the privilege of showing up and joining our audience today and me. And thank you for that. And we'll if you can stick around for a little bit longer, we'll do some Q&A. How's that?
That sounds perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Peter. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There we go. Welcome back. Let me do a couple of pinning things here, and let me get Jean pinned in here. Add pin. There we go. All right. I am re-inspired having listened to that again. I just hip hip hooray for Jean Callahan and all the good that you do in the world. How you've embraced the magnificence of who you are, who you were created to be. If you were a dude, I'd say, you know, you rock, dude.
I'll take that.
I don't even know where the hell that came from, but anyhow, I know off camera or off interview, you had shared with me at one point in time that you actually have done this little 5-10 minute exercise, core selfie exercise, number one, that we have in the chat box now that you can go and get. And my goal is to get it to 1 billion people. So Jean is helping me out, and she told me not too long ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, that she had done this with like 600 people plus, of all ages, sizes, dimensions of people. And my question, to kind of add on to all the nationalities and cultures that you've worked with, has this ever not worked?
Nope. It always works.
I mean, that's just amazing. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from my experience and our graduates and of Coach for Life that go through a longer version of this and a more professional version of this, they've used it with kids that are down as low as 7 years old, as young as 7 years old, and it's been used with people that are in their 80s. And it's a powerful, powerful process. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I actually had really great success. I used it with a woman who was about to graduate from high school and was trying to figure out what she wanted to study at university. And it was a really powerful tool for her to start to really narrow that down, because I remember when I was in college, I waited until the last possible second to declare a major because I just didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many of us have been in that boat? Oh yeah, most everybody. And we hear that one a lot. I asked a question in our training, where would you have liked to have this information at different junctures in your life? And career choice, studying major choice always comes up, almost always comes up, that it would have helped inform, maybe not changed, but inform that decision to a broader degree. So I want to we have limited time. We have about 15 minutes, so that we have that 5 minutes left for World Unity Week to do their packaging of this. And I've got a fairly sophisticated question from Tanya, and I'm going to try to summarize this real quick. And her question is, if I'm true to myself and I move forward in that avenue that is true to my core self, my life purpose, but it is an action that hurts someone else, right? That hurts someone else. How do I justify that? How do I deal with that? And so here's my answer to that, and it's twofold. Number one is that I believe everyone's core self comes from a place of compassion, love, and life-affirming nature. Life-affirming, not life-limiting, but life-affirming. I can also say that from my own personal experience that when I've made decisions with somebody that I was in codependency with, in other words, I needed to lean on her, so her in this case, and she needed to lean on me, and we were both happy with that relationship of leaning on each other, basically codependent relationship. When I started to stand up for myself, she was at a loss. She was angry because I was no longer supporting her in a relationship that looked like this. So I'm going to say this, is that there are times when I have made decisions for myself that I knew that was true to myself, my core self, my life purpose, my natural gifts and talents, using my core strengths, that other people didn't like. And it might be an employer, it might be a personal relationship, it might be a sibling. And that has to be okay with me. And I really struggled that from a codependency standpoint. It's like, oh, but they've always relied on me and I've always been there for them and all of this. And now they are kind of in a lurch. And they can react in many different ways that blame me, that are hurtful, that they feel they're being abandoned. And so I have huge compassion for this whole scenario when another individual that has been accustomed to my way of being or doing is no longer being and doing that way. So number one, I would say have compassion. Number two, and sometimes you can explain it and sometimes they don't get it. Sometimes they just don't want to get it. No, I want you to be the way, I want you to be the way that you have been as we grew up as siblings, as we grew into our primary relationship, as we've grown up as, raising our kids, that you've been doing for this organization for the last 15 years. I don't want you to change. And that then becomes the deeper work. Am I committed to being true to myself more than I'm willing to continue being a codependent or taking care of others? That's not my work to do. So that's a tough one. What I believe, though, is that it is probably for their betterment, and they'll get their life lesson when they're ready. They say, okay, maybe it's time for me to stand up on my own now. So I could be a model for that. I could be an inspiration for that. Jean, do you have any other thoughts on that kind of question of, sometimes this hurts other people when I stand up for myself and I'm being myself?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the way you said it was so eloquent and so perfect. I have also had experience with that. I think that for me, knowing that the place that I'm coming from, the decisions I'm making are coming from a place of good intentions. And if the other person can't understand that, that's okay. They're allowed to be where they are right now. Hopefully later on down the road, they'll have an experience where they will look back in hindsight and say, oh, I see why she made that decision. I see why she chose to do that or chose not to do that, as the case may be. But I know that it helps me just to know that when my intentions are good and pure, and it's not intentionally to hurt someone else, that helps me to be strong and to really make sure that I'm taking care of my own self.
Yeah. And she's coming back with a follow-up. I was speaking more to hurting someone in a sense that it is unsafe or disrespectful to another's boundaries. Simple example, when a child wants something that is against a parent's rule of the house. So, I mean, take this in terms of if an individual is, if I have responsibility for the mothering or the parenting of a child, then I need to take that seriously. And I don't believe that there's anything in a core sense, a core value or core life purpose that would go against taking care of a child, taking care of an elderly, taking care of someone that is sick. It's how do I apply my life purpose to that situation? And this has nothing to do with disrespect or safety. This has everything to do with supporting an individual that are capable of taking care of themselves to take care of themselves. Now, some people have been crippled emotionally that, no, I can't take care of myself. I need you here to take care of me. And so, I mean, how many people do you know of adult children that are in their 30s and 40s that are still relying on mom and dad? Too many is my answer to that. Too many. Because they've gotten accustomed to that. There's been a codependent dance that has taken place for 30 years or 40 years. Marriages, same thing. It could be a 25-year-old marriage and one relies on the other to do this and the other one relies on the other to do that. And if they change and they start standing up on their own, then the other one is, faltering. They don't know how to take care of themselves. This is tough, deep work. This is not, the awareness piece can happen in 10 minutes, quite literally. The working with it, the application of it for all the various people that I touch in my life and continue to touch in my life are going to be impacted by this. Most of them that are healthy are hip, hip, hooray. Glad to see you standing up on 2 feet, Peter, right? Taking over the empowerment of your own life. Other people that it threatens, I just have compassion, deep compassion. Yeah. Other questions, or Gene, I'll come back to you in terms of, we got about 7.5 minutes here. Listening, well, let me see if there's any questions. Let me just check to see if there's any other questions that anybody would like to, you can raise your electronic hand in the Zoom room here. You can unmute yourself. I think there's about 13
Yeah,
of you.
Peter, actually, Vilma, hi Vilma. She posted in the chat, Peter, Jean, can we have the statement Peter spoke at the beginning on, quote, as a human being, I have the right.
Sure. I'll post this because I've created a manifesto. And so here's the rights that I believe we have as a human being. Number one, I have the right to know and pursue the belief that I am a sacred, unique, and life-affirming human being. Number two, I have the right to know and pursue the rediscovery that I have within me, my core values, my life purpose, my natural gifts and talents. Number three, I have the right to know and pursue the actions that, when I am aligned with my true core self, I am a fulfilled, happy, and productive human being. Number four, I have the right to know and release all externally driven influences that that had me believe I am someone other than who I was created to be. And who I was created to be is a sacred, unique, and life-affirming human being. Number five, I have the right to take personal responsibility to remind myself that I am a sacred, unique, and life-affirming human being. I was born that way. I am now, and I always will be. And finally, I have the right to celebrate and rejuvenate that I am a sacred, unique, life-affirming human being. I have the right to celebrate myself. I have a right to celebrate that and not apologize for it. Not be humble about it. Now, this is not aren't I a great human being? But it is to say, yes, I am a great human being, just like you. And so if I can inspire that in others by celebrating myself wholly, completely, unabashedly, and not apologize for that, hopefully that will inspire others to do the same. So thank you for that opportunity. I'll put the manifesto up. I don't think it's been posted yet to the World Unity Week, but I'm happy to share that manifesto, and please use it everywhere. Bring it into your school systems, bring it into your family, bring it into your workplace. Read it every morning for yourself. You'll never have to apologize for being true to yourself ever, ever, ever again. Hey, hallelujah. All right. Okay. Any other questions or what got strengthened for you as you're listening to the awesome Jean speak about her journey, her work with CoreSELF, with her clients, with her friends, with her family?
It looks like we have a question in the chat box, and Raul also has his electronic hand up.
Some Johnsy, would this work for school kids, ? Or would it be too early? It would definitely work for school kids. A lot of our graduates work as primary school teachers, middle school being 7, 8, 9 age level, school level. High school professors, it's been used throughout the educational process, as far as I know, all the way down to probably, I don't know, 2nd or 3rd grade. So yes, it will work with kids. In some cases, kids have less baggage at that age. They got less stuff to unlearn. They have less to unlearn than someone that's 37 years old. So yeah.
A follow-up question on that, Peter. So would that purpose or especially purpose, would that change over a period of time, especially for school kids, because the way they would have articulated it could be different?
Yeah, the words might be a little bit different. My experience, and I ask my students all the time this, did it change from 7 to 17? And they'll say, the words might be a little bit more sophisticated, but the essence of that statement doesn't change. Even if it's being articulated at 7 years old. Now, the one thing at 7 years old is that the statement, they may be pointing it towards being a student. They may be pointing it at being an adolescent. They may be pointing it at a stage of life. But if you have and work with a student to, okay, so how could you make it more universal? Let me give you a better an example that I'm very familiar with. A lot of our students come in and they'll frame it as being a parent. As a parent, I am, and they create a statement. So I said, okay, so if you were to take the parent part out of it and you were that all the time, how would it sound like now? What would that statement read as? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Great question. Vilma's got a question. Gene, what is your best tool to manage deep-rooted conditioning? Great question.
How much time do you have? Deep-rooted conditioning.
We have 1 minute actually.
And I have a neighbor's dog over here. Pardon me.
That's
Blue,
okay.
please stop.
Part of the universe.
Yes, he's decided to bark at the neighbors are doing yard work. Peter, why don't I throw this one over to you?
Okay. How do you deep conditioning? This is about habits for me. If you're 37 now, you've been doing life in a habitual way for 37 years. When you have your life purpose statement, your core values, your natural gifts and talents presented and articulated on one sheet of paper, that's what we're talking about here. They're clear as a bell. The question then becomes, how do you create new habits? How do I bring that into my decision making? How do I bring that into my workplace? How do I bring that into my relationships? How do I bring that into my relationship with myself? And so this is where the work begins. And be kind and gentle and compassionate with yourself. Don't expect it to change overnight. This is a lifetime's piece of work, but it gives me the true north. It's like if I have a compass and I stick it in my drawer and I never go back to refer to it, and then I'm wandering in the desert of life and going, let's say, I want to go north, but I'm not sure I'm going north, and it's cloudy today, so the sun's not really helping me a lot. It's kind of like that. If you take this and put it in a drawer, then nothing changes. But if you take this out every single morning, read it, get reacquainted with it. How can I apply this? Or in the evening, doing some journaling. How did I honor my core self today? And start looking at the affirmations of what you are doing, as opposed to, oh my God, it's not happening here. It's not happening here. It's not happening here. Simple saying that we have at Coach for Life is what you focus on expands. So focus on what's working. And even if it's one thing or two things during the day, celebrate that. Practice celebrating yourself, being yourself. So that's the short answer. And we're a little bit over time. So I'm going to say thank you to our audience today. I love you wherever you are in the world. Gene, you are just awesome. That is what can I say? And I love your core self and who you are and how you honor that and how you are the light that lights up wherever you go.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. Please come back tomorrow. We have two special guests that are husband and wife and business partners from India, Sweta and Ramit. You're going to fall in love with them, guaranteed. And we'll continue the conversation. In the meantime, God bless. Namaste. Stay safe. Bye-bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you so much for coming.
Bye-bye.